So we know every single year that college football has finally came whenever we get our first Nick Saban cranky press conference, and that's exactly what we got this weekend after Alabama's scrimmage. Today, we need to break down some of the things Nick Saban said, talk about some things that stood out to me, including one thing that has got to get cleaned up. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe the wide receivers are going to be able to clean up the drops by the season? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions seem small. They are massive to content creators such as myself. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And Nick Saban took the podium after the scrimmage and instantly started talking about some of his woes with the wide receiver room, where the wide receivers continued struggling dropping passes. And Nick Saban went on a bit of a rant stating, why do they call you a wide receiver? They call you a receiver because it's your job to catch the pass. And this is something that has plagued Alabama for a few seasons now. We can go back to the year where they lost the national championship to Georgia, where yes, Jameson Williams, John Mechie weren't available, but there were still opportunities in that game for Alabama to win the national championship, absent Jameson Williams, absent John Mechie. But drops reared their ugly head. Fast forward to last year. We can talk about several areas that really hindered the Crimson Tide. We can talk about the lack of discipline. We can talk about the lack of adjustments on defense. But one of the areas that really stood out to me was drops, where Bryce Young would be doing his best Harry Houdini impersonation, and it wouldn't matter if the wide receiver didn't catch the ball. And that gets me to one of the biggest takeaways I had from Nick Saban's press conference, because he did talk about how Jalen Milroe had a really good day, and from everything we've heard, Jalen Milroe looked the best out of the three quarterbacks, and this could be the time where he takes the job, because that's something Nick Saban has consistently said. If you've listened to Nick Saban, he hasn't said we're going to give the job to Ty Simpson or Jalen Miller or Tyler Buckner or Dylan Lonergan. They have to take the job. Which one of these guys comes in and takes it to where it's undeniable? In a lot of ways, that's the team choosing the quarterback. In a lot of ways, that's the quarterback choosing himself. But in either case, it's undeniable when it happens. Maybe that's the direction we're heading with Jalen Milroe, but the reason why I wanted to talk about specifically the wide receiver drops is something we talked about with the offensive line not long ago, where I was one of the first people to really start saying, hey, the quarterback battle, it's important. It's not the most important thing we need to be watching here. The most important thing this season for Alabama is that offensive line. It must continue getting better. It did under Coach Eric Wolford in his first year, but it must continue trending in that way, because Alabama doesn't have Bryce Young this year. And so we can argue all day long until the cows come home. Is it going to be Buckner? Is it going to be Simpson? Is it going to be Milroe? Is it going to be one of the freshmen? If the offensive line doesn't give the quarterbacks the adequate time to be able to read the defense and make a decision, it doesn't matter which one of those guys it is. And furthermore, if the offensive line isn't able to block properly for the running backs, something that we do believe is going to be a major feature of the Alabama offense this year, the rushing attack. If they're not able to get the rushing attack off the ground, they're going to have a real hard time getting the passing game going. So the offensive line is of the premier importance for Alabama's offense this year, and I think we can talk about that for every single college football team in the nation. But another thing that is highly important is the wide receivers being able to catch the ball. Because in a similar conversation piece that we just had about the offensive line, it doesn't matter if it's Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, Buckner, or any of the freshmen throwing you the ball if it's not getting caught. That has got to get cleaned up, because one of the ways you can help a quarterback's confidence, make plays whenever he has a play to be made. If the quarterback throws a ball that the wide receiver can come down with the ball. It's going to help his confidence, going to help him get in the groove. That's something we have got to see. That's something that has absolutely got to be cleaned up. But I do think it's important to note that there were other areas where Nick Saban did seem a little bit jovial. So it is going to be interesting to see. I think if we're watching this and asking ourselves, what are the units that are going to be very exciting? I think the defensive line for Alabama is going to be a ton of fun to watch. I talked about this whenever Justin Eboigbe got cleared to play, that he is going to be a major piece for this Alabama defensive line. I think Jaheim Otis is going to become a household name by the end of the year. And I think the inside linebacker competition is going to be insanely fun to see which two guys end up with it. I think we all assume Deontay Lawson is one of them. Who starts next to him is the major question. But judging what Nick Saban said off the press conference, it seems like it's fall camp as normal. And that's where I wanted to ultimately end this video, because two things can be true at the same time. Everything I said about drops needing to be cleaned up, that can be true while simultaneously us acknowledging, hey, it's fall camp. These things are going on across the nation. And I think Clint Lamb with On3 expertly did this the other day on Twitter. Expertly laid forth these expectations where he had a quote and it was saying, the wide receivers need to do this better. Yes, our quarterbacks probably could have played better, but how are we supposed to judge them when the defensive line was getting to them? The wide receivers weren't catching passes. Like, it's fall camp. There's still a ways to go. And at the very end of this long quote, the quotes end and he says, except this wasn't Nick Saban that said this. It was Kirby Smart. And the reason he did that was Twitter was on fire when Nick Saban had that press conference, and you'd have thought that Alabama was not going to win a game this year. Clint Lamb was proving the point. No, these conversations, these problems, that's fall camp. That's what fall camp is. It's being exacerbated to a point because it's Alabama, but that's fall camp as normal. That can be true, and simultaneously my point about drops needing to be cleaned up, both ideologies can be true at the same time. So very interested in hearing from all of you. Of course, we're going to keep an eye out on what happens next. We'll be talking about this a lot more tomorrow evening on the Bama Standard, the Final Whistle, where I guest every week. Can't wait to see you there. But as always, hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about what Nick Saban said. And do you believe the wide receivers are going to clean up the drops? Something I think has got to happen for Alabama's offense to become the offense they want it to be. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See you.